me start off by saying loud and clear, or at least clearly, maybe not loudly, that I am not good at this. I enjoy making predictions, and I think I did pretty okay with the Euros prediction this summer, but fantasy football is a completely different beast, and it's one that I've never fully wrapped my brain around it, but still think it's fun to play around with, and I thought it'd be fun to get in a league with you and see how we do over the season. So I'll have the code to join our community's league up on screen and down in the description as well. And if you like to play a little fantasy ball, feel free to join the league and see how you do against me. Hopefully you do better. And if you don't play Fantasy Premier League, then now's a good time to start, because at the very least you can probably beat me in the rankings. So there's something for everyone here. But for today, I thought I'd share my screen and just give you a look. If you know what you're talking about in terms of fantasy, then maybe I should say that I'm going to give you a look at how bad this situation is. And if you're sort of a lost soul like me, let's talk about it. So I'm going to go down and share my screen now, and I guess we can go over pick team. This is not sort of locked in or anything like that for game week 1, which is coming up next Friday, but it's a start. And maybe the best way to talk through it is to go into the transfers tab. So as you can see, right now I'm operating on 0 extra budget. I spent my whole £100 million on this squad. And let me start by going through the defensive line a little bit, because this took a lot of adjustments. Mikolenko is maybe the more, or Shar. These two are the more debatable names maybe on this line. The way I had it set up initially was, and maybe this will explain Mikolenko first. I had Branthwaite in with my defenders, and he feels like too risky of an option right now, because we don't know what's happening with him. He doesn't want to sign with Everton. It might be Man United, but there's a lot of bumps in the road there. So I decided not to risk anything with Branthwaite right now. And actually, let me just pull up the defenders only. For 0.5, for $500,000 less, I could get Mikolenko, who I thought was, I don't know why I kept it in Everton. Maybe this is something I need to look at modifying a little bit. But last year, Branthwaite was on 3.5 points per match, 10 bonus points over the season. I know bonus points are changing this year. And Mikolenko is actually on 3.6 points per match from last season and 9 bonus points. So for 0.5 or half a million less, it seemed like an easy sort of substitution. Should I switch him out for someone that's not necessarily an Everton player? Maybe. So I still have about a week and a half, or a little under 2 weeks at this point, to make more changes for free of points. To be clear, if you've not played fantasy before, this does not cost any money. So we'll see about that. And then, okay, another problem was that I had 3 Arsenal defenders. I had Saliba, White, and Gabriel. And that becomes a problem in a game week where Arsenal might not be playing, because if you have to play with a minimum of 3 defenders, you'd have at least one Arsenal defender on the line, on the pitch, off the bench, getting 0 points. So Gabriel is the one who ended up getting the boot, and his replacement was going to be one of Fabian Schär or Kieran Trippier. I have to get I have to get my Newcastle guys in there. Schär's on 5.5 million. Last season he had 3.4 points per match, 12 bonus points, and Trippier is actually more expensive by $500,000, 4 points per match last year, and 20 bonus points. Ultimately, the reason I decided to go with Schär is that, this is my captain. Love him. Maybe should pick him if I'm changing things around later on in the week. But I think this guy's my age. We're not getting any younger. Schär got more playing time this summer at the Euros. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative for the beginning of the season. But for now, I've got Fabian Schär in there. And then the other piece that's here, in my initial, the way I sort of build my team is I start throwing some names, seeing where I'm at with the money, moving things around. I had Pedro Porro on my defensive line. And the more I looked at him, the more I went, 5.5 million, maybe just a little bit more expensive than I'd like him to be. So I started looking at other options, and I went more expensive in the end. I ended up paying 6 million for Guardiola, but gotta get some Man City in there. They've got Chelsea in the first in game week 1, which is a perceived difficulty rating of 4 out of 5, and this will come into play as you'll see. I also have a few Chelsea players in my lineup, so game week 1 might be a little rough for me, but still 4.4 points per match last year. He might be a little bit more expensive than I'd like him to be as well, but if I'm between 2 players who are slightly more expensive than I'd like them to be, I decided to go with Guardiola over Pedro Porro. I just don't know what Spurs will look like this year. You'll notice I don't have Son either. In fact, I don't have any Spurs players in my lineup right now, which might be a problem. But I think that covers pretty much my line of thinking with the defensive line right now. Let's talk about, I should mention too, no Trent. Trent is 7 million. any Liverpool players right now either, and that's just because I don't know what Liverpool is going to look like this year. They've got a pretty good start to the season, Ipswich, Brentford, but a Kloppless Liverpool, I'm going to have to see it before I believe it. Now let's move on to the midfielders. I'm thinking it's a no Salah, no Saka, no Son midfield, which feels a little bit crazy. I was looking at Eze, I was looking at Odegaard and Foden, and we'll get to that. Believe me. And I wanted Gordon for 7.5 on 5.2 points per match. Seems like a really good deal. You guys know I am a Gordon believer. If you watched my Euros video, so I knew I had to have him. I knew I had to have Isak. No question. Let's not, there's no debate about that. Okay, well, let's talk about Sankari first. I had Fulham's Andreas here for 5.5 million, and I ended up switching for Sangare just to make more room. Because what ended up happening was that I initially had Jared Bowen in this list. He is 7.5 million. Okay, not a bad start. Well, no, actually a pretty bad start. Not terrible, but challenging. But again, maybe felt, well, I guess he's not really that overpriced. Comparable to Gordon, really. Then I switched him out for Odegaard. I was trying to keep a little bit of budget, maybe 500,000, 1 million max, just for the beginning of the season, when we get an idea of how things are going. The way things were lined up, I decided to bring in Odegaard instead of Jared Bowen for 1 million more. Without relying too much on these numbers. And then I was sitting on an extra 1 million. The way my lineup was, and I think it's kind of reflective of after I switched out Andreas for Sangare, I was sitting on 1 million in case I panicked at the last minute and I switched out Odegaard for Foden. But if you're looking at my team sheet now, you can see that now Foden is there and Odegaard is not. And I'll come back to this when I talk about the keepers. And then Palmer. Can we see the numbers here of how many people have him? Yeah, 50% of teams. That's got to be a high. Oh yeah, with number 1 of 258. So at least in terms of midfielders, he's the most selected midfielder against over Salah, over Saka, over Son, over anyone else. And that's because you're still getting somewhat of a good deal. I think he's had the highest jump. I think he's jumped about 5.5 million since last season. I think he was the highest points getter last season. And so when you compare to like a Haaland, or let's not even talk about Haaland because he's not a midfielder, but when you talk about Salah, who I think is 12.5, and Saka is 10 million, you can get Cole Palmer for 500,000 more than Saka. Again, if you're going to spend on one really, really premium midfielder, Cole Palmer just feels right. to me and 50% of other players. Again, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I've got no idea. This is all fun for me, so don't listen to what I say. In fact, probably do the opposite of what I say. And then in Kunku, also feels like a bit of a steal. Missed a lot of matches last year due to an injury. Rough game week 1 against Man City. But if I'm thinking about the long run, if he's healthy this season, I think 6.5 million for him is a really great price. And then of course, as I said, decided to leave nothing in the tank and to roll up Foden instead of Odegaard. Again, if we look past game week 1, 6.6 points per match last year, 31 bonus points, 230 total points. This feels right now. Let me know in the comments what you think of Foden versus Odegaard, especially considering the $1 million price tag that is extra for Foden. I think that covers the midfield pretty well. Now let's talk about the attackers. As I said, I don't think I'm messing around with Haaland, and let's see how many people do have. So 40% of players have him on their team. That's 3 of 68 attackers. And that might have a lot to do with the price tag. Again, so you have Ollie Watkins, who got more points last season. Now, of course, there are a lot of elements at play here, but he's $6 million cheaper. And so if you look at my team selection, as I said, I had to have Isak. Watkins feels like a no-brainer. I'm operating on no Haaland. For Watkins, I did have the internal debate of Havertz or Watkins. And right now, I'm sitting on Watkins. Is that a mistake? What do you think? If you're going to be joining my league, don't give away too many of your secrets. And then for the third option, this one was kind of like a Wood versus Muniz for me. I think they're quite similar. What is he on? 6 million, 131 points last year. And then Muniz would be down here, 6 million also. 97 point last year, and for me it's very much like a pick the go with the devil, you know, kind of situation. And of course, Wood being an ex-Newcastle player, I've had my eye on him last year, and I think this is a solid pick for like a cheaper, not super cheap, but cheaper option up front. Also, Fulham, if I go back to Muniz, I think it's Muniz, right? Because it's a Portuguese name, so there's no Nye. Fulham have Man United game week 1. And Forest have Bournemouth. So let me pop into my team pick right now just to see if I am playing the way I've got things set up right now. I am playing with all 3 attackers. I also haven't really given out my captain's armband yet, so I think it defaulted to Isak, but I don't think that is how I'm gonna go for the first game week. Back to the transfers though, I have to mention the keepers, because that's where everything sort of changed. That's how I ended up getting Foden in for Odegaard. So initially, for my keepers, again, when I was just sort of drafting up a team, I had Pickford and Flecken, who were 5 million and 4.5. And I thought, that's just too much to like high ranking keepers. But again, I don't really rotate my keeper that much. I think as long as Arsenal play, if Raya's in my final lineup, then Raya's gonna be in nets. So I removed Pickford, who, by the way, had the most points out of all the keepers last year. Started 38 matches. Raya started 32, so he was at 4.2 points per game, per match, and Pickford was on 4. So I popped in Raya, and then when I had Raya, Saliba, White, and Odegaard, they told me I had too many Arsenal players, which is right. You can only have 3 players from one team. So that's when I was like, okay, let's see about moving out Odegaard, moving in Foden. Then I get Raya from Arsenal, and that left me with 4 million. And for that 4 million, I had to look at the $4 million keepers, which is the least that you can pay for a keeper. And I decided that it was going to be Fabianski. What's the other option? Turner. Played 17 games last year. So started more games, got more points. That might be an argument for putting in Turner instead of Fabianski. Neither of these guys, I think, are first choice. I do have room for a Forest player, though. So that's how all of this sort of shaked out. If I decide to play Odegaard, put in Odegaard instead of Foden, then I'm going to have to go back to like a Pickford. Can't forget about Nick Pope, but then I have to get rid of another Newcastle player. So all of this is still very much up for being changed, being edited. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you'll be joining our league, and if you're a seasoned FPL player, let me know what kind of results you got last year, just so I can set my expectations right for like how painful these results will be for me this year when all of you guys are stacked up on top of me in the league. Anyway, guys, I ended up chatting away longer than I anticipated for this video, and I'm seeing that my camera's already just about set to turn off, so don't forget to join our Fantasy Premier League Invitational League. The code will be down in the description box. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think we'll do check-ins throughout the season. I'm excited for this season to get started. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for thinking about joining this league. And I'll see you soon in the next video.